When we think of the most pressing issues of our world today, the conflict in Israel-Palestine must rank among the top 3 or 4. It's related to so much that's in the news today as either an example of our worst fears and apprehensions, or as a conflict, the underlying dynamics of which in turn propel and exacerbate so many of our other concerns. It's difficult sometimes from this far a remove to keep in mind the human impact, what living in such a condition of sustained conflict can mean to the individuals, participants and bystanders alike who live in the heart of it all. We in university communities, and those of us who stay in touch with world issues through our news media, are perhaps too comfortable with the idea that Israel-Palestine represents another of the world's intractable conflicts that has endured for generations, and that the prospects for peace there are slim. We may, if we are not so pessimistic, however, believe that the only solution can be a brokered solution between political actors, and that all the stakes in the game are at the highest levels of government. We miss, of course, the efforts that are undertaken by individuals and groups within the societies affected by such conflict. There are always efforts to build peace at the level of civil society, and these efforts create the conditions necessary for the success of more high-level politics. We are very lucky today to have 2 guests on campus who can speak from personal experience, both about the impact of the Israel-Palestine conflict on their lives and to share with us their ideas and passion for building the precursors for peace. Israeli Yaniv Rashif lives within range of the missiles that are fired from Gaza. He served in the Israeli army as a foot soldier in a sabotage unit until he made the decision not to fight anymore. Palestinian Bassam Aramin served 7 years in jail for planning an attack against Israeli soldiers and has since dedicated himself to nonviolent action. Just 2 years ago, his young daughter was killed by a rubber bullet fired by an Israeli soldier. They are here today representing Combatants for Peace, a movement that was started jointly by Israelis and Palestinians who have been involved in violent conflict. It is committed to the idea that the solution to the conflict between their 2 peoples can only be found through nonviolent action, an end to the Israeli occupation and oppression of the Palestinian people, and a 2-state solution. Please join me in welcoming to Quinnipiac Bassam Aramin and Yaniv Rashif.
Shalom. Everybody hears me? Okay, thank you. My name is Yaniv. I'm 37 years old. I'm living now in a small village near the city of Sderot, which is always in the news, at least in Israel. It is the most closest to the Gaza Strip. I don't know how many of you studied about the history of the conflict, the history of the Arabs, the history of the Palestinians in particular. I will just briefly say that Palestinians have been living under occupation for the last 500 years. First, it was the Turkish occupation, the Ottomans, for 400 years, and at the last 100 years, first the British and then the Israelis' occupation. Israelis, Jews, established their state around 60 years ago, and they are coming to Israel land for the last 100 years with the feeling and the sensation that they are going back to their homeland because their origin and the origin of their religious is in Israel. They had the land there 2,000 years ago, and they were expelled by the Romans and spread all over the world. About that time, 2,000 years ago, a new belief raised, Christianity. At that time, maybe some of them still today, Christians believed that the Jews are responsible for the death of their Messiah, Christ. So, for Jews living inside Christians' nations, it was very hard life. They were expelled, prosecuted, and of course the peak, I assume, the peak of their concepts of the history as a long suffering was the Holocaust, in which millions of people, innocent people, were killed because they were considered to be others. I was born at 1972. My parents immigrated to Israel from Argentina. My mother said that she decided at the age of 10 to immigrate to Israel because she discovered that Argentina is a democratic country, and for that reason anyone can be a president in Argentina. Of course, if he's Catholic. So she said that from the age of 10, she wanted to be in a country that even she can be a president. My parents came to a small village in the desert. For them, it's like no man's land. When I was growing up, me and other kids were playing in the backyard of our village, which was called the Arab village. You had ruins there, and mosque, and old mosque, and a lot of tree. And at the time, it was a very neutral name to us. As if you say America or, I don't know, a book, an apple. This was the Arab village, just a playground, a place to go. We didn't understood then what I'm understanding today, because the conception was that Israel was a place with no people for a people with no place. That was one of the stickers at the time when I was raising up. My family had really good connections with Arabs. I was actually having a lot of good friends because in the south of Israel there are a lot of Bedouins. And I used to play with them, and they were just like any other. I knew they are different because in Israeli society, like maybe the poor here, you can say that they know their place. So Arab also in Israel, most of them, they know their place. Bedouins for sure, and people who live in refugees camp in Gaza Strip, well, they are really the one that knew their place. But my family was very liberal and humanistic. We had workers from Gaza Strip because we were farmers, but they were very good friends of ours. My father never, well, he treated them as you would treat just any other people. In other places, I sometimes saw that they wouldn't treat so nicely. They were considered sometimes as rich people treated their, what they call their help. They were the help, they were the workers. I was a guide in the youth movement and did 1 year service before the army. And in this year, I was a guide in a camp of Israelis and Arabs working together to know each other for peace. I'm telling you that because maybe it's harder to understand why a nice Jewish boy from a nice Jewish family decided that he wants to be a combatant, a fighter. You must understand that in Israel, in my circles, from the same reasons that I go to this camp to talk with Arabs, because it is considered to be good and advanced and liberal, from the same reason I will try to get to the most highest place in the army. And I'm sorry to say that still today, if someone tells me that he is a doctor, well, I appreciate that. But if someone tells me that he was in the commando, that means the Navy SEALs, for me, it's much more admirable. Because this is the way I was brought up. Till today, I'm sometimes thinking, well, I could do even more. Not that I wanted to kill more people. I didn't want to kill anyone. I just wanted to be admired by myself. I don't know, to achieve something, like to say here, maybe I went to Harvard or something like this. I wanted to be a man. And in Israel, it's much more important, I think, the military service than other things, at least when I was a soldier. I joined the regiment of Golani, and in Golani, in Israel, it's known to be quite brutal soldiers, even among the soldiers. They say that when Golani is somewhere, there's always balagan. Balagan in Hebrew is, how will you translate balagan? Mess. Happy people, and from the other side, brutal. I was in the special unit of sabotage inside. My friends were not brutal at all. They were what they call in Israel officers' material. Mainly we were posted inside Lebanon. At that time, Israel controlled or defended her border within Lebanon. For me, it was no problem. I was defending the people of the north. Well, I was fighting the Hezbollah. I didn't thought maybe they have the right to fight me because I am inside Lebanon. I was defending my country. I had to see a lot of things that maybe here a person in the States doesn't see. Like my father drove me to the airport and I said to him, at first of the beginning of our conversation, said, well, I don't have anything to tell them because my life is an Israeli, and she can tell you, she talked to me Hebrew, so I understood she's from Israel. My life is very regular. There's nothing unique about what I did or my experience. But I don't know if in America you can say that in the same family you have a father and a son that have seen people without hands, legs, heads from this distance and killed others. I want to finish and let Bassam talk about how it looks like from his side. But just one experience of my times at the occupied territories. At that time, we were considered, it was the first intifada. That means the first resistance of the Palestinians against Israelis. At that time, it was not armed, but with stones and sticks and whatever they could find. And we were considered too good soldiers to spend us on this. And so they sent us to Lebanon. But at one occasion during training, they said, well, there's a lot of balagan, that means mess, in Gaza, and we need Golani to come and make some order. So when you're traveling by day, put your brown beret so everybody will know Golani is here and will be afraid of you. And indeed, they were afraid of us because we had our reputation. And my unit especially worked at night. And one night, the order was, let them know that we can always find them. At any time, at any place. Enter their houses, their streets, the place where they are shopping. So we were walking at night, entering this family's house. And Jabalia, if you ever seen a refugee camp, it's like Bombay. It's like the most populated place on earth. And you know, the streets are narrow and with the water running in the street, terrible conditions. And we entered this family house. We were, as in Lebanon, helmet, anti-bullet helmet, anti-knife vest, then the vest for the magazine, then the M16, the commando knife, some grenades, surely a lot of other things on the back I don't remember. We were soldiers like you see in the movies. But this wasn't a movie and it wasn't Lebanon, it was a house. Like some group of soldiers now enters and surround you with guns to your heads. This was us. And the family was of 5 members. They had just a young couple and 3 children. They lived in 2 small rooms, like take 2 bathrooms over here, this more size, the size of the apartment. And we put them in one room and began to search when we heard a noise behind the wall. There was something inside the wall. And we were very alert and with guns to the wall when we saw a small door in the wall. So for us it was like bingo, the big prize, like there is the terrorist that we're looking for. In Lebanon we were a lot of times shooting first and asking later. And I think this is the situation today in the occupied territories, as in Iraq. And not because your soldiers or our soldiers are bad, they're just afraid for their lives. And they are put in there by their leaders. They're not the problem, let's say. They're only suffering from it. So we noticed that there was a door, maybe as big as that, maybe a little bit bigger. And we were at the door, aiming at the door, and the father said, no, it's okay. And went bravely behind our guns and opened the door. In Gaza, in occupied territories, in general, the rate of unemployment is very high. People trying to raise food and find food in any way they can. And it's common to find inside the houses people that are raising for meat rabbits. Huge 8-kilo rabbits like this. Something, it's a big animal, but very nice, it's a rabbit. So this gentleman wanted to break the tension. He just took one of the rabbits and put it in my hands. And then he took another and another and another. And I was like with one hand with the gun and the other, because I had kind of a shelf, because of the magazines, I was holding the rabbits. And we understood that, well, it is not dangerous for us. And without thinking, just naturally, we began to pet the rabbits. We were like a group of soldiers petting rabbits. And it was, I think I remember this moment because it was very surrealistic moment. Like you would say it can happen only in a movie. Well, in a movie, this is the moment that the voiceover will say, and then I understood, I'm wrong. Well, it didn't happen. I was sure I'm doing the right thing. I'm sure I was looking for the terrorist. And now I know for real that I was cheated, I think, by my leaders. In the same way that your soldiers are now occupying Iraq, which has nothing to do with that happened on the twins. Nothing to do. It was Al-Qaeda, Iraq with Al-Qaeda. It had no connection. But someone used your fears for their interests. And maybe I will tell you more about their interests later, because I want to leave Bassam so you hear his story, and thank you very much.
My name is Bassam Aramin. I am 40 years. I am married. I have 6 children. And as one of the Palestinian children, I feel that I am wanted in everywhere, as Yaniv said, in house, in the street, in the school. So I start to struggle by raising the Palestinian flag when I was 13 and throw stones with groups of students on the Israeli patrols at night, on the Israeli soldiers. At the age of 17, we have been arrested and I sentenced 7 years. In the Israeli jail, you learn how to fight, how to hate, how to be more determined to revenge, because they try to kill our humanity by torture us every day, every moment. During this time, I have dialogue with my jailer. Our jailer don't know anything about us. We are just criminals, dangerous people, terrorist people. When he tried to understand my story, we have dialogue and we create kind of friendship. Then he became supporter to the Palestinian people. I understand why we are fighting. And this was the first Israeli I talked to him, and he changed his mind. Then later I understand that I changed my mind also, that I believe in the other side there is a human being. The most difficult element between the Palestinians and the Israeli, in spite we are fighting each other more than 100 years, we don't know each other. It's the fear. And the fear prevents us to know each other, because all the time we are separated. Our dialogue just with guns and stones. It's a long years, a long experience, very difficult. When I get released in 1992, 2 years later, it was Oslo Agreement between PLO and Israeli troops start to go outside the Palestinian cities. All the time we are hearing our politician and the Israeli politician, the American politician, that this conflict cannot be solved in a military solution. And when you think about this by yourself, it's the truth. 100 years we are fighting each other. Israel is not safe, Palestine is not free. In the end of the day, we will have peace agreement. So why we continue dying? And why we continue fighting? We need to fight with another way to end the occupation. We need to talk to the Israelis because we are dying in their name. The occupation in the Israelis' name. They need to be responsible for their occupation. In 2005, by 4 Palestinians and 7 Israelis, we create Combatants for Peace. The Israelis, soldiers who served in the occupied territories, who practiced the occupation on the Palestinian, everything, arrest the Palestinians, damage their houses, killing them, torture them in the checkpoints. Then they reach to the point that we are just to create more enemies in the Palestinian side. They don't defend Israeli security or the Israeli people. And they say that they refuse to be part of the Palestinian suffering anymore. The Palestinian people who spend many years from their life in the Israeli jails, who resist, who fight the occupation and paying the price and reach to the same point. In our meeting, we discovered that we are the same. We are fighting for the same thing. We want to achieve the same peace, simple peace, for our children and our families. Everyone from his point of view. They are occupiers, and we are under the occupation. We have the right to resist by armed struggle, but it's not work. From this point, we join our hands together and start to talk to our people. Our message, if we, the fighters, the real enemies, can talk, everyone can talk. We are the instrument for, and it's not after the conflict, we are in the middle of the conflict. Leave our weapons and start to talk. We believe that the words, the truth, is more effective than the weapons. And we must learn. It's 100 years experience. It's enough to understand that it's not work. We start to talk to our people, both people, Israelis and Palestinians. They support us. They need someone, courage to lead them. They believe in that, and it's their lives, their hopes. We became around 600 people. Our way is very clear, very strong. Non-violent struggle against our common enemy, the Israeli occupation, and the violence. In the 16th of January 2007, like this day exactly, for 2 years and 2 months, an Israeli border police shot and killed my 10-year-old daughter, Abir, in front of her school in Anata village near Jerusalem, from a distance of 15 meters by an American bullet, from an American M16, from an American Jeep. It's very easy to go to the easy way, revenge. And it's very easy to revenge. But we will continue in the same circle of violence again. Revenge is the way of the weakness, and it's not solution. I can solve my personal problem by revenge, but not my people problem. I decide to double my efforts to protect my other 5 children and the Israelis' children, because all of them is our children. And to break this circle of violence by ourselves, to stop kill and stop revenge. We start our activities together to let our people, Palestinian and Israeli, see us working together, not just talking. Nelson Mandela say, if you want to make peace with your enemy, you need to work with him. So we are talking, bring more people, young people, to let them know our experience, to give them choices. Because in that time, I think that I haven't any choice. I need to fight. Yaniv the same. We discover that we have another choices. There is a difference between death and life. There is a difference between violence and non-violence, revenge and justice. This is our message. The enemies, they can be friends and brothers. Thank you.
Do we have questions from the audience? Perhaps we could proceed a little bit in terms of the questions that you've come with and ask each of our guests to reply and move that way. Any questions?
I was wondering if your families, both the families you've created and your parents, are supportive.
I say we supported by our people. Of course, our families is the first. We are 600 now, soldiers. We're working in the Palestinian villages, in the Palestinian streets, talking to the people. They support us. They agree with us. And we are very safe.
I'm not married yet, but my family...
I know, a nice lady.
Actually, this is why I came here. My family at first was very worried about me going to this terrible place behind the mountains, the occupied territories. In all of the years of trying to negotiate man to man as peacemakers, I never heard once about someone that was injured, died, or something. The ones that were injured or even died were injured in Israel. So I am more afraid when I'm going to a demonstration in Israel, because one of my members just recently in Tel Aviv was like they waited him in a dark alley. And in Palestine, I don't have what to worry about. In Israel, if you half an Israeli, even you'd know. We are, for the nice one, we are naives, and for the others, sometimes, the extremists, we are traitors.
My name's Lorella. If the thought of revenge is ingrained into children, I mean, you were fighting when you were 17, how is that attitude being changed, especially to children? Because if we want to transition to a reconciliation process, we start, I mean, like, that's a good place to start, I would assume, but how do you educating children, or where are children being educated and being told that revenge is not the way, and that you can actually come to an understanding?
Actually, we start by ourselves when I was 35, and it's good, it's very early. Some of our friends, 60 years in Israel, he never meet Palestinian. So we need to work on ourselves. We are not Gandhi. We are trying to use non-violence by ourselves. And during that, we have a lot of activities targeted the young people. I learned how to hate, how to revenge, not in the school, not in the boxes, from the behavior of those strange people, from the occupation. It's very difficult to talk to the young people under the occupation to be silenced. But we make our best through our lectures to talk to them, to give them alternative, to give them another choice. But it's very difficult.
It is not that we are not fighting, but we are fighting now for peace. We demonstrate, we do a lot of things, but in a non-violence way. So the other side, sometimes the other side, it's the settlers, sometimes it's the army. But if we are not threatening them, and if we are not hitting back, it's hard to hit us, because we are like those rabbits. And about the kids, I think there's no problem with kids, because I see my nephews. We live in a big family, all the brothers and sisters and my mother and father. They are told each day, if you will hit your brother or your nephew, I will take the toy from you. So inside the family, we are, in all the families, teaching them to be non-violent. The difference is that one day we say, you see him, this guy with the hat, this special hat, well, he's not like the others. He's the other. With him, it's okay. We have, I think, all of us are violent, and all of us are non-violent, and all of us are ugly, and all of us are pure. We have everything in each and one of us. I think you understand what I'm trying to say.
You mentioned, Bassam, that your daughter was killed by an American bullet from an American Jeep. To an American audience, what do you think people who are interested in trying to reach a settlement, a just settlement in the Middle East could do? What would be something that Americans could do besides what you all are doing within your own, with each other?
We think, we think that Israel is another star on the American flag. And we know that, and you know that, and the Israelis know that. So it's in the hand of, it's in your hands. The key is in the United States to make pressure on the Israeli government to stop the occupation.
As a follow-up then, are you optimistic about the new administration in the U.S. and the efforts of President Obama and George Mitchell to arrive, and maybe Secretary of State Clinton, to make any progress? Or do you think they need some other kind of push?
I am all the time optimistic. Even when Bush was here, I think, yeah, it's a historical change in the United States. And you need to push it. Let him do that by your support, your voice. As Yaniv said, your George Bush take you to another war, but he used your fear, and you accept that. So let Obama do the right thing in your voice to the right direction. I think we have a big hope that something will change. We need to stop this slavery.
Well, you have to understand, I don't know how much you know about this, but there's a lot of interest into it. Israel is America's big stick in the Middle East. As he said, for the Palestinians, they are considered it as they are fighting the United States. We receive $3 billion worth of weapons every year from America. These weapons are produced here, so families here can buy cars and whatever they need from this $3 billion. It's not only our interest, because if a congressman will ask his voters to resist this aid, they need jobs. And I don't know if you know that, but your country is producing more than half of the weapons for all the world. So when we are talking in Israel about people with blood on their hands, well, everybody's got blood on their hands. If they know it, or if they don't know it. And it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. And I also, as an Israeli, I'm afraid not receiving aid. Still, I'm the best, really good friend of Bassam, and I love him. But still, inside, I'm still afraid, not of him, of something. I'm afraid. So we suggested, Kerry, take this. Don't say, okay, or an aid or nothing. Take a part of this aid and gradually diverse it to means of peace. Build with American money and American factories schools. Send teachers and pay them salary so in Israel children can learn in American school with Palestinians, or just learn in English and learn Arabic, and eventually they will get scholarship to get here. I tell you, even those who vote for the extremist right will want their children in one of those schools, because this is how his future is secure. And this is the way. Not by force or no. Don't go out of this room and say, oh, those terrible Israelis. Now I will hate them. Earlier I hated this terrorist, now I will hate this soldier. This is the easy way.
If you were to reflect on what you would most like to see happen, do you think the idea of a two-state solution, Palestine as one state and Israel as another state, or should it be moving toward a one-state solution of two peoples?
If you ask me, I prefer no state, 0 state, 6 states.
Good.
We are dying since 6 years, 1 state or 2 states. Let us have any state. We want to save our life. It's more than important. But the majority from our both sides prefer 2 states. So we agree, we support 2 states. If tomorrow they want 1 state, it's better.
It's ending the occupation. And I think most of the people in this room don't understand that there are some obstacles that are not by chance there. The settlements are not a bunch of crazy people. It is almost 500,000 people today. And the settlements are built inside the occupied territories in a special way, trying to prevent any way to achieve a Palestinian state. And if we're saying that without a Palestinian state there won't be any peace, actually we're talking about they are preventing any way for peace. Because if this is now the occupied territories, they are built like this and like this to separate, to try to harm any way of the Palestinians to have a continuity in their land. The story of the wall is the same. I was pro the wall because I was living in Tel Aviv and I saw people exploding in restaurants. So I said, okay, let's build a wall, it's okay. But how they build the wall? Instead of putting it on the border, they put it in the same way, entering their territory, cutting their houses, cutting the chance for peace. So yes, we are cheated and we need an Obama.
How come in Israel, how come you guys, I mean, I know you're saying you have protests and everything. Like, you're saying that America has a big stake in it. Why aren't the Israeli people standing up to their government? Why are you coming outside of your country and asking us for your help? Why aren't you asking your own government and you standing up to your own government and saying, let's look for peace now?
Well, he's asked his prime minister and he's got an open door for him. And he said, welcome. But my government is still from the old school. And they still believe, well, they say, yeah, we need peace, and they even sign agreements. But from the other side, they really believe that we want peace, but let's achieve this hill also, or grab this part. I just learned recently that after the Oslo agreements, that was the key agreement between Israeli and the Palestinians, the government that signed it helped to help 200,000 people to pass and live in the settlements. The population increased and doubled in the time of writing and signing the agreements. So they were cheating the Palestinians, and they were cheating, of course, those people. It's really easy. If you're poor, we offer you a job. We offer you, not a job, but mainly a cheap apartment, better education, nice roads, nice parks. Why you should live in this poverty? Go and live there in the settlements. And people respond to that, not because they are ideological. Most of the settlers are not for ideological reason there. I believe that I can talk to anyone who's ready to listen. And we're trying to do that. Bassam talked in more than 100 universities inside Israel. In talks like this, I'm trying to talk in the Palestinian side also. It always like this. Just listen to our story. We have been a meeting in the UN, and I don't believe the Israeli ambassador will be there. I hope, but I'm not optimistic about it.
I wonder if you could say something about, perhaps it's too soon, the conflict in December and January in Gaza. Did that make your peoples more ready or less ready to listen to what you have to say?
No, I think our message is all the time the people ready to hear, because it's 1,440 people have been killed, including 440 children. It's not easy. And all the time the people use their anger to harm the others and to harm themselves. It's very difficult to control yourself. It's make our message more harder, actually. And we knew that we need to double our efforts, especially through or during these difficult situations.
You have countries and people around the world that say that the United States intervenes in other people's problems too many times, that we always go in other countries and we try to, like, we think we're trying to help, and other people are like, no, you're not helping us. And like you have Europe, after we went to Iraq, they're like, oh, you shouldn't go there, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. I'm not saying it's right or wrong that we went to Iraq, but what I'm trying to say is that if we come into Israel, and we did try that before to help you guys reach an agreement, if we come in there now, you have terrorist groups and you have people all around the world that say, we don't belong there, it's not our fight. So what do you say to that?
I'm saying that you're already there. You are invested deeply. I was near the Gaza border this last war. I had to leave my house because I was almost crying when I saw what happened there. All my combat experience wasn't even near to the brutality that I saw there. Just from looking above the hill and see the mushrooms of the bombs coming up. Much more worse than in Lebanon. And this is the most populated city on earth. The bombs are your bombs. You are already there, but you are doing the wrong thing. Nobody will hate you if you'll go to Iraq and build schools there. People around the world, those who hate Americans, they hate them for good reasons. My family came from Argentina. Your country has been involved in Latin American deeply. The CIA and any places, you are invested there, but for bad means, not for good. It's not your fault. You didn't do that, but others are doing it in your name. You should tell them, I want other things being done in my name.
What about boycotts, domestic sanctions, which is a collection of nonviolent means to, put pressure on the Israeli government? Do you support, either or both of you support that kind of action as a way to put pressure on Israel to withdraw from the activity?
I say the Israeli people, if they don't watch the TV, they are living in the most quiet and security place in the world. They don't know what happened on the other side. They are very safe. They don't need peace and they don't need security because they live in peace and security. They don't feel security and they will never feel security because they occupied another people. This is the fear. So every effort, non-violence, bring attention and pressure on the Israeli government, I support it. We need to support it and to let the Israeli know that there is something wrong. You need to be informed what your soldiers and sons do in the other side, in the West Bank, in Gaza. Most of the Israelis, even in the last war, they don't see the pictures. And the majority say we did enough. This is the problem.
There is no difference between you and the Israelis and the Palestinians. You were born to this situation, I was born to this situation, he to this situation. We can place seats and most of people will react in the same way. I prefer, and this is because I'm now studying this new tool of nonviolence, instead of boycotting someone, try to change his mind. Like if your, let's say, university have connection with a university in Jerusalem and you're, I don't know, there's $1 million that come in and through, go and back, okay? You can say instead of boycott, well, we want to make with this $1 million a new faculty for peace studies or nonviolent studies. I think your effect on the Israeli society would be much higher because you're not coming and saying, well, you bad people, you haven't been in our shoes. How do you know that we're bad? You're trying to show us another way. I think in most cases this is better.
I would just like to know, since you are from the Gaza Strip, could you tell me what it's like living there?
He's from...
I'm from the West Bank.
The West Bank. Oh, okay.
He's from Gaza.
He's from the Gaza. Okay.
Near Gaza.
Well, could you tell me each one of you what, firsthand, so I know, because, I only get my information from blurbs here and blurbs there, and so from firsthand, could you tell me what it's like to live in these places?
It's a big jail. Gaza is a big jail. It's 1.5 million people. Israel leave Gaza in 2005, without agreement with the Palestinian Authority after 30 years of occupation, and they closed all of it. So they told the Israeli people that we stopped the occupation. We are not there. And in spite of that, they continue throw Qassamim or rockets in Israel. It's jail closed from all the sides. No one can go or enter to Gaza. Most Gaza Strip is refugee camps. Very crowded, very difficult life. In January last year, I was on a speaking tour in New York, and the people of Gaza, they entered to the borders of Egypt, around 300,000 people. They go to bring milk and food to their children. Yeah, this is the life of Gaza.
Is there areas to produce your own food? Are there spots of land? I know that sometimes didn't some of orchards were cut off from people being able to use them in other areas, but do you have places to grow food in this small area?
Yeah.
You do, but it's not enough.
There's a difference between the West Bank. I think you should talk about the West Bank, but in Gaza it's a big jail and there's no enough land or materials, and because Israel is not willing to talk to the Hamas, he won't recognize Israel, but he's willing to talk. Israel is also not recognizing Hamas, but is also not willing to talk. I ask, who would you talk to if not to your enemy? You're talking to your neighbor already, so the problem is with your enemy. And this man was Hamas 20 years ago. That means he was the enemy and we shouldn't talk to him either. So I'm sure Hamas will become eventually someone who you can make peace with if you just talk to him. But because of that and trying to isolate Hamas and their government, which I don't like either, but, well, they were elected. There's no harbor, or there's no permission to ships to enter the harbor. There's no airport. So they have these caves under the ground. Of course, they also try and bring in bomb, but it's for food, for everything.
Your areas are, everything's very based on religion. It's a big part of identity. And I was wondering, how are you guys, not just dealing with your respected governments, but your respected religious community and religious leaders to help the transition into a more peaceful sort of way of life, especially when many of the extremists base their beliefs upon religion?
Actually, we have some regional group from Palestine and Israel talking together, and sometimes have some media. It's not a religious conflict. It will be the worst. You kill in the name of the God. There is no dialogue and no negotiation. And I think the religion must be a strong element to gather the people and to direct them for peace and reconciliation.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us?
Thank you.
Things that we can do?
There is a metaphor that I used. In Israel, Palestinians and Israelis, Arabs, Muslims, Jews, Christians, we're all woven one into another. We made a shirt from that. But this shirt got a lot of holes in it. So our main work, Bassam and me, I'm from another local group in the south of Hebron. I live in the south. He lives in the center. We have actually small groups. We just meet. We know each other. We understand each other. And then we work together, helping people in the harvest when settlements attack them, protesting against blockade. He didn't talk about the experience of the blockade. It is terrible. There are 700 blockades just inside the West Bank, regardless of the 13 entrances to Israel, the 13 checkpoints. They are controlled every move of their life. I think that what you can do Well, the world is full of hate. The shirts that we all are wearing are full of holes. In this country, you have the biggest percentage of people in jail. And this is another kind of occupation. I don't see a blackface in most of the universities that we've seen. If I will go to a jail, maybe I won't see a white face. So I think you've got a lot to do in your own society. But this will help me too, because the next time I will come, if you are organized and sewing together, like we can be hundreds in this, and people will be waiting outside just to listen. And I think it is very important to be involved in the personal level, and not so much by raising a flag, but finding a way. And I'm telling you, actually, it's fun. In this way, if you find some friends, it's not it's activist. It sounds great. I'm a small person. I'm an artist. Most of the time, I'm not doing this. I'm doing other things. But it is fun. Even Bassam is annoying. תחזיק איתי. This is the school that was the school of Abir. To those who want to see afterwards our photo, it's too sad for me to. But this was the school, and Bassam decided that he wanted to, how he said it, that her memory will live longer than the one who killed her. So we decided, and with the help of Rebuilding Alliance and Donna and her friends and people here, we built, the Combatants for Peace built a garden in her name. This is us working, like combatants from both sides. And the last picture. This is the garden today. This is the place today. And our plan was to try to collect more funds to build another one, but we changed our plan because we came to America, and not as in Israel, we see that you have community centers here, like churches and synagogues, where all the family comes. Like the family is coming to hear lectures of us or to pray, and the children in the same time have a place to play. So we said, well, we meet only in the houses, and when we want to talk about peace, there's not always a place to join and bring people to here. So we need like peace centers. So not only that we can do our work, we can bring our children, and while we are walking, they are also studying to know one another in the same time. So I hope the next garden will be not only a garden, but a great peace center, and we'll have a lot of Competence for Peace centers around the West Bank and eventually in Gaza. And so there's hope.
Any last questions?
Just a question. If people wanted to financially support that, how do we do that?
I think Donna is.
Yeah, I'm with the Rebuilding Alliance. We're an American nonprofit. When we saw what had happened to Abir, we called the Bassam's family and asked what we could do to help. And they said they didn't want anything for themselves, but something that could help for her classmates. And so we made it possible by thousands of small donations to build that first playground at her school, Abir's Garden, a safe place to grow. And then we've set out on the second one, which will be at Seir Girls' School near Hebron. It's where the Armin family is from, and Abir's cousins go to school there. And again, Combatants for Peace will come from all over the West Bank, all over Israel by bus to do the building project, and then to come back again for the opening ceremony. So we ask you to think about, if you'd like to support it, by all means, we welcome your donations. If you'd like to support it, that second part is to make it safe. Bring about a time when soldiers stop shooting at children. And that has to do with our visits to Congress, to actually having more and more access to changing policy, to making it so that it's not American bullets, American jeeps, American guns that are active in all of these places, but that stops, and that children can be safe in these playgrounds that we're creating. You've seen a beer school, that's pretty typical. It can be really bleak. There aren't many playgrounds. It's really important for children to see these former combatants coming together to build, and not just soldiers in front of their school, but people working together. And then it's important for the combatants to see that life goes on, that the children have a place to play, that the parents' clubs are caring for them, and the parents' clubs are helping with both the design and putting in lighting. So very exciting to see it take shape. There's something you can do right away. I mentioned that. We do go to Congress next week, and we're invited to give a briefing at the Rayburn Foyer. This is different from all the other tours the Rebuilding Alliance has done. We do them around all of our building projects. And usually we meet secretly, somewhat secretly, or under the radar with congressional staff, but very rarely with senators or congressmen directly. Something changed in the last couple of weeks. It really changed. What had been the very first time that we'd ever been invited to give a briefing in the House itself, in the House of Representatives. And that was, but the congressman involved didn't want to tell anyone his name, that we would just sort of got the room. But all of a sudden, 2 weeks ago, I think because of Congressman Baird and Ellison's public briefings in the House, they're all seeing that lots of people, lots of their peers care about this issue. So what I'd ask you to do is call your senator and your representatives and say, meet with them when they're in town. We want you to attend the briefing that's going to be in the Rayburn Foyer on March 26th. This is your chance. Please go representing me. I'm your constituent, and I want you to be there. You've got to hear what they have to say. I think that'll help a lot. And you already heard that Senator Kerry spent about 2 hours between him and his wife talking with them, and that too, we're already seeing spin-off effects from it. So we hope that some of the ideas that you've heard today will take shape in changing policy and making it safe. Yes. Oh yes, the full speaking tour schedule is at www.rebuildingalliance.org, and you can click on the schedule. You'll see that there are a few events in New York. There's a press conference being sponsored by the UN press office, and there's some public events. City College is hosting. We go into New Jersey, go back up to Rochester, and then to Washington, D.C. So the schedule's there. If you have any suggestions, if you have media contacts, if you want to intern with us, short term, long term, please think about that. Well, we've done, Rebuilding Alliance is still pretty small, and we do internships, and we do hire teenagers, and we'll bring them to our office in California, and that. We do send people over to Gaza, to the West Bank. Usually it helps if they're going in with some particular skills. But there's one, we did build a kindergarten in the village of El Aqaba, and they are welcoming everyone. So they're great. They built their mosque in the shape of a peace sign. And the whole school, the whole town is under demolition orders, though. And we've been working for the past 6 years. My name's Donna Buransky-Walker. I'm the executive director of the Rebuilding Alliance. I'm a founder. Yes. Thank you. It's a long last name. Even good. It's on its way. Thanks. Yeah, and I founded the Rebuilding Alliance. We're all about rebuilding war-torn communities and then making them safe. And it's this double component that has to do with not just the building, which is critically important, but also the policy change.
Is this your first time in the East like this, touring around?
It's the first time at Quinnipiac University. So very good that we had the chance. I'm really honored to be here. Sometimes on a speaking tour, one might spend a few days in one place and then fly to another place. But on this particular tour, they've started in Boston. They've been working their way through New Hampshire all the way down and through. So I think that there's a lot of good buzz that develops when you stay in one place and bring the groups together. I think we've got like 35 speaking events on this particular tour. And sometimes on Saturday it was 3 synagogues a day. On Sunday it was a mosque in the morning, a synagogue at night. And today it's been 2 universities, and we might even make it to the Rachel Corrie Memorial in New York City tonight. Today's the 6th anniversary of her killing. And Rebuilding Alliance rebuilt the home that for the family she stood to protect. And her parents are on our board of directors, so also good links to Gaza. So thank you very much.